everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Brain Balance Live. My name is Corey, and this over here is board certified cognitive specialist, national autism speaker, and also a licensed therapist. This is Heather Wells. What's going on, Heather? It's good to see you.
I'm so happy to see you. For anybody who doesn't know, this is Jen's husband, or Jen is his wife, however you want to swing it. But I will tell you, Corey is the man with the plan. He is the reason we have these Facebook Lives. He's the technological genius. And you just don't get to see his face all the time. Dear friend of mine. So how are you?
I'm awesome. And guys, I'm also a brain balanced dad. I'm a busy dad. I have 3 kids. Yes, I am Jen's husband. And that's my first title, I would say, husband, then father, and then, whatever I do for work, like that, in that order. But I always enjoy jumping on because you get the dad perspective as well as the mom perspective. And for me, Heather, like I'm struggling a little bit right now. I mean, we haven't talked about this offline, but my little guy, he's 11 years old. Everybody knows, probably from Jen, but our son Roger, he's having a difficult time, and I find that whatever I give him, I get right back, just like I'm looking in the mirror. So I've actually, you'd be super proud of me, Heather. I found an app that is all about habits, like daily habits, and I'm being very conscious about tracking what I'm doing for 2 reasons. One, for myself, to make sure that I'm like, having healthy habits and making sure I'm drinking my green juice and, doing my exercise and all that stuff. But more so to model that I've got it together in front of my kids. And Roger is very good when he knows what's coming, as most kids with ADHD and ODD, like our kid. And so for me, I am able to let him know, hey, listen, this is what's expected. Well in advance. We're going to do our 10-minute break, then we're going to do our homework, and then we're going to do our, exercise or swimming in the pool, whatever you want to do. And then we're going to unload the dishwasher and we're going to brush our teeth, get ready for bed. Like, that list is very important. And I find that that's really helped me kind of center myself when things get tough, So yeah. I just wanted to fill you in on that because things get crazy sometimes, You
and Jen are really good at tag teaming. And by the way, I want to say one other thing. They really take diet seriously for personal reasons. But if you want to know some easy ways to have some really healthy, nutritious meals that are good for physical, mental, emotional health, this is Mr. Lean Green Dad, and follow him because he is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Well,
and I should have mentioned that at the beginning. And that makes a big difference too. But if you ask me who should watch today's show, my answer is, if you have someone you love, watch this show today. I don't think I've ever said that to start off a show. I think every topic is important. I don't think I've ever done a more important topic than what we're talking about today. And it is rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria. Dysphoria is a Greek word that means unbearable. But how many of you feel like you have to walk on eggshells around your child, your teen? It could even be a spouse, a friend, because you say one thing and what they hear is something completely different. You are trying to give constructive feedback about this one specific thing, and your child feels indicted as a human being, and they feel attacked and they go on the defensive. Or let's say, honey, just want to remind you, take out the trash tonight. You think I'm irresponsible. A teacher gives feedback on a rough draft of a paper and has it all, it's bleeding with all the red ink. That teacher's out to get me. They don't like me. They think I'm a horrible writer. They think I'm stupid. This is where real or perceived rejection is absolutely debilitating. We are going to talk about how to differentiate that from mood disorders. We are going to talk about a lot of things that cause this challenge. And I think a lot of the causes will surprise you and what you can do to help. So let's go ahead and move into the first slide. And this just so perfectly depicts one aspect of rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
So we've got multiple different kiddos here, right? And Heather, I know you love when I get to take on the role and I get to tap into my acting roots back in the day. So so who do you want me to be?
This is all the same guy who this is sort of the progression throughout his day. Early in the day, eating dinner, and then bedtime.
Okay. So on the left side, we've got people that are talking to him. This is outside stimuli telling him things like, oh my gosh, you're so handsome. You like really brighten my day. You're a genius, dude. Like, you are such a good friend. You're so funny. I mean, way to go. You're fantastic. What an inspiration. Hey, you rock, right? Like, all of those things, even just saying them, they make you smile. They make you feel good. But then as we move to that second picture, what happened there?
What happened is he got the one negative comment. You can be a jerk sometimes. And that is, you see all the others fading away. And that is the one that's sticking with him. And he starts ruminating on that. And then it's keeping him awake at night. Individuals with rejection sensitivity dysphoria can just, if any of you have loved ones who have had a stroke, my mom, when she had a stroke, no matter, she had aphasia, expressive language challenge after that. And no matter what she was trying to say to me, it came out, new doctor, new doctor, new doctor, new doctor. She could be saying she's hungry, tired, frustrated. What did the news say? New doctor, new doctor. That's all that came out. That is perseveration. Well, we can also do it and just spin on thoughts. How many of you have loved ones who get a thought in their head and they just spin, and goodness gracious, it's hard to switch gears. That is what is happening. And it can go on for hours, weeks, or years. People can hold on to a comment for years. So we'll talk about a lot of other ways it plays out, but that is sort of what this looks like, real or perceived rejection. And even if you can be a jerk sometimes, that's not a nice thing to say. But we've got to teach our kids to consider the source. That says more about them than it does about you. We got to having a quote of the week to talk through things is so helpful. You're really growing a lot of critical thinking skills, and you're less likely to get backlash from a conversation about this topic. When it's about a quote, they don't feel like you're personally, like I put up one yesterday about use rejection to fuel you, and what does that mean to you? What does that mean to your kids? What does that mean to your spouse? And having those conversations where there's just this, what wires together, fires together. We need to replace this rumination thought with something more positive. Okay, so let's go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, well, I just put use rejection to fuel you. And I asked everybody, what does that mean to you? Comment, leave us a comment and let us know what that means to you, because I think that's for me. I'm trying to think of can you give us a real life situation? Like, I know someone just said, to that kid, you could be a real jerk sometimes. And so are you saying that he should use it to fuel him? Because obviously he doesn't have the tools, or what should we do in that situation?
Well, it depends on the scenario. But if a lot of times, remember that anger is the tip of passion. So if your child gets mad about the teacher making some corrections on the paper, and you see them mad about that, that means they care. They care how they were doing on the paper. And so then brainstorm what they can do to take the suggestion and talk about how that is just feedback. That is just feedback. What can you do for it to make you better? It's also when someone talking about how when you let someone's negative comment just stew in your brain, so many of our kids are seeking control. That's with oppositional defiant disorder, with or without diagnosis. If you have kids who are control seekers, let them know that they are giving that person control over them. They will not like that. And that's a way to use control in a positive way. I will not let them have control over my mind. I'm in charge of my mind. That's a way you can fuel you. So, all right, let's move on.
Yeah. Next slide coming up.
So
there we go.
What all does this look like? So some signs of rejection sensitivity are sudden emotional outbursts or rage. So if your kids have issues with emotional dysregulation, there is a high likelihood that they have rejection sensitivity. I've done a show before about how many of the hallmark signs of ADHD are overlooked and not talked about. One of this is emotional dysregulation. And this is very tied to that. And being emotionally impulsive. I did an impulsivity show a couple weeks ago and talked about how impulsivity is not just making careless errors or interrupting others. It's also being reactive. We got to have a moment to pause and think about something so that we get into our logical brain and respond in that way, in a problem solving way, instead of in a lash out way. A lot of our kids with impulsivity can't do that. They might have difficulty. Let me take a step back and look at, the big picture. In the big scheme of things, how big a deal is this? What's another way to interpret that comment? I don't have time to get there. So if you have kids where there's only one way to see something, I'm right, you're wrong. Everything's black, everything's white, everything's great, everything's horrible. There's only one way to interpret that comment, is they're going to be their go-to move. So it's really important to work on pausing, and a lot of the impulse control techniques I talked about a couple of weeks ago. A lot of times rejection sensitivity looks like opting out. And I have a lot of families who come in talking about lacking motivation. Their kids seem lazy, apathetic. They only care about video games. One of the ways this plays out is, I don't think I'm good enough. You think I'm smart. But I want you to keep thinking that. So I'm going to feign apathy about this exam, because then if I fall short, you'll still think I'm smart. I would have done better if I tried. I'd rather get in trouble for not trying than for you to think I'm not as smart as you thought I was. It is a maladaptive way to try to preserve this very crippled self-esteem. It's maladaptive, but it happens. And then if I feign apathy long enough, I actually start believing it. Yeah. I have no prayer doing this anyway, so I even try. I make a bad choice. I'm a bad person. I give up. I'm going to do whatever I want. It also, on the flip side of that, can look like perfectionism. I'm not worthy. And so I am going to earn approval by being perfect at this thing that I think I can be the best at. That can look like an unhealthy level of competitiveness. Like, I have to win or else life is awful.
Right.
We had a student where I would look at a paper he wrote. He was a high schooler about to lose a scholarship to an Ivy League school on the rowing team, because if he was going to turn in a paper and think he might get a low 90s, 94 on it, that wasn't going to be 100, so he wouldn't turn it in at all and would get a 0. That is how far this can go. It usually doesn't start that way, but that is a beast that if you keep feeding it, it gets worse and worse over time. Perfectionism is rooted in anxiety, and so often it is about trying to earn approval. So we talked about the rumination, perseveration, just getting on that loop. That is super tied to both anxiety and depression. Social withdrawal or avoidance of situations where they fear criticism. Many times this is confused with social anxiety. So the way I could do an entire show on this, and I started to do a slide on this, and like that goes into another realm that we don't have time for today, but it matters why kids are avoiding the social scenario. And if it is because of criticism, that is more about rejection sensitivity. You can have both, but so many times it's not actual social anxiety. Issues with relationships. I feel like I am under attack constantly, so my immediate go-to is defensiveness. You think I'm irresponsible? No, honey, I was just reminding you about the trash because I know you have a lot on your mind. I was trying to be helpful. You always do. And then it just spins. All of this is rooted, you can see, in low self-esteem, a really warped self-perception, negative self-talk. There are so many negative ruts of thinking and catastrophizing and all or nothing kinds of thinking. Mind reading. I already know what you're thinking. We're not nearly as good at mind readers as we think we are. Fortune telling. This is already going to go to just so poorly. So I just peace out on this. There are many ruts of thinking that individuals will get into. Thoughts of self-harm or suicidal ideation. This is linked to suicidal ideation. 50% of court-mandated anger management assignments are individuals with previously undiagnosed ADHD, and 98 to 99% of adolescents and adults with ADHD have rejection sensitivity dysphoria. The link between rage, anger management, self-harm, even if it's not suicidal, cutting, anything where they're hurting themselves or picking to the point of wounds on the skin, people pleasing. I am your chameleon. You tell me to jump, I say how high. That means I'm going to give into peer pressure. Check out the peer pressure show for tips on that. I will do anything to get you to like me. That is dangerous. That can lead to a lot of risky behavior. This is what this looks like, and you can see how it can often get misdiagnosed as bipolar disorder or other mood disorders, which is why I want to delineate those two things on the next slide.
Yep. Here we go. Moving on to the next one. Here we go.
So the biggest difference is that the moods of rejection sensitivity dysphoria and ADHD are normal, except for their intensity and sometimes like the speed of the onset. Mood disorders, the change there is no trigger. Just out of the blue, someone starts feeling manic or they start going into a low mood of getting depressed. You cannot pinpoint anything that it has to do with an event that's happened in life. It's a slow shift. It's usually not just like a snap of a finger. It's going down into the valley. And those episodes must last greater than 2 weeks, and often they are up to months. Whereas with rejection sensitivity or deficient emotional self-regulation with ADHD in general, the changes have a very clear trigger. I think you attacked me. I perceived rejection, whether or not it was there. And then my emotion matches my perception of the trigger. All of us might get hurt from time to time from criticism or feeling rejected. This is a matter of degrees, and I misperceived the trigger. I think you were dissing me and you weren't even doing that.
Yeah.
Or you gave me a little slight that was maybe a 3 on a scale 0 to 10, and I'm taking it as a 10, and then my emotion's a 10 also. So it's a misperception and it is an overreaction, but understand that this is hallmark for ADHD and rejection sensitivity. Is that the ADHD brain is wired for hypersensitivity to emotions. There's also beautiful strengths there. There are also things you can do to improve it tremendously. What wires together, fires together. The right stimulation can improve these things. It is an instantaneous shift. It is not a gradual decline into the valley. And usually these episodes, they can happen more than once a day. They can happen once a day. They can happen a few times a week, but they are rarely longer than a couple of hours. But you already know it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. Will it be tonight? Will it be tomorrow? It's not a matter of if, it's when, but hours as opposed to weeks or months. Sudden. That is the difference. But if you looked at what your child, your spouse, your friend, how they are feeling and behaving, is that a normal response if you dialed it back 50%? That's rejection sensitivity. That is the biggest way to tell the difference.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, a slow shift versus like a quick, like flipped out. Heather, does it build up over time? If you keep like pushing it down and you don't address it, and then all of a sudden it just explodes. I mean, would that fall into the rejection sensitivity?
Yes. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you asked that. Thank you, Corey. The externalizing of the emotions can be harder on the loved ones in the environment because then you're attacked and you're accused of saying or doing things that did not happen. That is difficult. It is very important for parents to know that a lot of kids will swallow it down and internalize it, and that is dangerous. Those individuals are even more likely to have suicidal ideation or to have that is going to come out, and the eruption, it is going to be a biggie. So it is so important to tune into these things and look for signs. That is 90% of kids with ADHD still have ADHD in adulthood. The difference is, and it doesn't even mean it's less severe, a lot of the overt stuff that you can see physical fidgety, hyperactivity, and big demonstrations. As we get older, we learn what's acceptable. And we, especially women, and this is not stereotyping, this is research. Women are much, much more likely to internalize it. Women are much more likely to want to be people pleasers. As much as society is modernized and stuff, there are certain things that hang on. And that is why there is more, when it's internalized, there is a higher chance of having diagnoses of mood disorders, whether or not that's accurate. And of course, a lot of these are comorbid, meaning more than one thing exists at a time. Anxiety, depression, it leads to other issues, and it can lead to suicide attempts.
Do you think, I mean, suicide aside here, like, do we look at a more recent pop culture situation with like Will Smith, where, something was joked about, and maybe he had been holding on to that for so long, and things like that, and then he just popped, in a public setting. I mean, I don't know. It might be a stretch here doing that because it might have been an isolated situation, but
Well,
I'm sure with his wife dealing with alopecia and things like that, like he's probably been a support, guy for so long. But how much of it, how many small jokes and things like that can you swallow before, you just pop,
yeah, and that brings up another point, which is experts estimate that individuals with ADHD, by the time they are 12, we're only talking about 12 years old, legitimately have received 20,000 more negative comments than their quote unquote neurotypical peers. I always do the quote unquote. I don't love the neurotypical and neurodiverse terminology because we're all diverse. But what we mean by that is having neurodevelopmental things that can lead to struggles. There are also gifts there versus, okay, textbook brain. It's really cool to have, there's a lot of gifts to ADHD, but so many kids are misunderstood. They're thought to be difficult. They are the problem child. You're so lazy. You're so difficult. You're so defiant. You're so controlling. You're so mean to your sister. If only you would apply, like there's so many things. And I'm not beating parents up. It's hard. I have been that parent. Believe me, I know how hard this is. So all I am saying is it may not be fair, but it is very, very, very important that we are the safe harbor for our kids. I have a slide later to remind us of some things that are unintentionally shame our kids. No one watching this would ever say something to shame their kids intentionally. But I bet all of us have said some of these comments, not realizing the unintended message from
Yeah,
those. And I'll review this later. Okay,
absolutely.
let's move on. Man, you've asked the best questions. Something that is counterintuitive, probably, this is very important to note. If you have kids with sensory processing struggles, they are also at higher risk for rejection sensitivity. This can apply pretty much across most of the senses, but I wanted to give a couple of big examples. One is auditory processing. So many times when we think of auditory processing, we think of, can my child follow directions? Do they have trouble sounding out words? That kind of thing. It is more than that. Think about all the components of the auditory signal. There is pitch, there is volume, there are pauses, there are rhythms and stress patterns, and there's intonation. Da, da, da. If a sentence goes up at the end, it's a question. If it goes down, it's a comment. There are so many layers of the auditory message. A lot of kids will think you're yelling at them because they take in too much auditory. And so they hear auditory, their volume dial is turned up, and they say you're yelling at them, especially if you use a monotone voice. Or you might be using intonation and they're missing that part of the signal and they hear monotone, and that means you're mad. No, honey, I'm cooking dinner while we're talking. I'm folding laundry, but they will misperceive that. So this is counterintuitive. If you have kids who have trouble with sense of time, they may also have trouble with intonation. How about that? The same thing that gives my body rhythm and time grows my sense of time. I can look at an assignment, no, that's going to take about 30 minutes to get it done. That same part of the brain helps me hear the difference between, I think she should get the job. I think she should get the job. I think she should get the job. All those stress patterns change the meaning of what I'm saying. You could say to your kids, go to the upstairs bathroom and bring down the towels. And they go to the one down the hall. And you're like, I just told you to go. I didn't hear that part. You emphasized upstairs. That was lost on them. And now you're frustrated with them. And now you're mad at me. And I really tried to, I must be stupid. Okay, body awareness. Hang up, listen to this. Most of the time when people talk about body awareness, they talk about, this is how we learn to read nonverbal cues. And so Corey and I are talking. If I see him smiling and open, relaxed posture, we're getting along. This is good. If I see him, tensing up and doing this, he's mad at me. I need to apologize and redirect what I'm doing. Yes, that is part of it. It is more than that. It is more than personal space. This is foundational for having a sense of self. If you have kids who are space invaders, if you have kids who don't know how hard to hold their pencil, if you have kids who don't realize how aggressive they're being with someone, if they're sensitive to touch, if they get in somebody's grill and don't respect that bubble, all of these are signs of personal space invasion. If you know they're missing social cues, but it is foundational for sense of self. The first stage of sense of self is I am my body. That's me in a mirror. That's me in a picture. If body awareness does not keep developing the way it's supposed to, I don't grow a sense of self. When my body awareness is not there, I don't get that I am a multifaceted human being with a heart, soul, values, beliefs, family connectedness, interests, hobbies, strengths, struggles. I have inherent worth because right. Just because. And so that means I don't have self-worth. And so I am who people say I am, or I am what I do, or I am who I perceive people say I am. And that is where the sensitivity comes from. I make a bad choice, I'm a bad person. You're indicting me as a human being. No, honey, I'm just trying to help with this one thing.
Yeah.
Body awareness, rejection sensitivity, sense of self. And guess what? Just as another note here, if I don't get what stirs my soul, if I don't get the deepest parts of what make me worthy, I also don't know what motivates me. Right. So I do things because I have to avoid a punishment, to get a reward. Everything is such drudgery. And then I'm told I have a bad attitude, lazy, task avoidant, and that's rejection.
Yeah, I got you.
I can give lots of examples with the sensory system. If you have equilibrium issues, balance, clumsy, toe walking, motion sickness, that is tied to anxiety. If I'm anxious, I'm more inclined to misperceive what you're saying. If I have visual issues, I think you're coming at me more aggressively than you really are.
Yeah.
On and on it goes.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to Katie. She just tagged her friend Elise. So, hey, Elise, if you're watching, I hope this helps you. Obviously, Katie tagged you because you're probably like me, where you have a kiddo that's just could use a little bit of help and a little bit of understanding. So hopefully this episode helps you out a lot.
Thank you for sharing. I love it when people pay it forward. It's so great.
Me too. All right. So I'm going to go slide 5. Is that cool with you?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go.
All right. So some tips real quick. Reinforce strengths all the time. I know this sounds obvious, but we have to be intentional about this. It's so easy that it's our job to instruct and train and keep the train on the tracks, keep things rolling the way they're supposed to go. We must remember to pause and catch our kids being good. What are they interested in? What are their strengths? Focus on progress. If they are better with their sibling than they were previously, talk about, I saw kindness. You have really worked at your patience. Show interest in their hobbies, interest in their interests. Give them time to explore their strengths, because we need those strengths to counteract the struggles. It gives us perspective, right? It's so important that individuals, whether you're a child, teen, adult, understand that if you have rejection sensitivity, that does not make you a weak person. That does not make you less than. It is a real struggle. You also have strengths, and you need to remind yourself of that. It's really good to come up with some mantras. I want to be real careful here, though. If you're working with your kids on coming up with mantras, I am not talking about positive affirmations. And you're probably like, what?
Yeah.
Here's why. Because if somebody told your daughter, you're fat and ugly. No, honey, you're beautiful. I don't believe that. So now I think you're just feeding one to me. Maybe you even mean it. You have to say that because you're my parent and you love me. And I appreciate you saying that, but I know you're lying to me. They're not going to say that out loud, probably. They will say, no, I'm not. You can say, I love your eyes and how they sparkle. You have such a genuine smile. Hone in on the area that they're struggling with, but make it a believable comment, or make it a neutral comment. I'm awful at math. I am getting better at math, and I'm going to keep getting better. You can do it. You're so smart. No, we don't want to talk about what are fixed traits or what they perceive as fixed traits. Look at progress. Look at something that's believable. And as those mantras replace the negative, it can then move into more positive affirmation. Otherwise, the brain rejects it. So Remind them, how many times y'all hear me say this? All emotions are valid. So when you see them struggling, I know it's hard. Take a breath, have some settling time first if you need to, without them feeling abandoned. You must be their safe harbor. You deserve settling time. You deserve to be frustrated and hurt by the way they're talking to you.
Yeah.
Be their calm anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's important. The best thing we can do is empathize. I know you're really hurting right now. Tell me about that. Whatever you're feeling, you can tell me anything. And by having one-on-one quality time, these conversation check-ins, even when a big explosion is not happening, it makes it much easier for them to come to you when it is. And they know that you are going to be their listening ear. Don't talk at them, talk with them. Listen more than you speak. And don't be Mr. or Mrs. Fix-It. We don't want our kids to struggle. We want to jump in and make it better without problem solving. I am just listening. Remember, especially with tweens and teens, it is a typical part of development. They are seeking independence. We want them to. We want them to grow in their agency. They must have agency to have motivation and hope. So don't do something that's going to have their eyes rolling at you. They care. They care. This isn't logistical for them. This is heart. They love me unconditionally. Family connection, that just cannot be overstated, and make them positive, make them fun, laugh together, engage in their interests. Ask them to teach you a hobby of theirs, or tell you about a new interest of theirs. Tell me the funniest part of your day. Ask open-ended questions about their days all the time, but pointed questions. If you just say, how was your day? You're most likely to get, fine, I don't know, whatever. So open-ended, where it's not yes, no, but something targeted. What did you do at recess today? What was the funniest part? Do things like that. And Q-tip, quit taking it personally. Yeah, right. Easier said than done. I know, but it's very important. We have to explicitly teach kids that sometimes individuals will make a general comment. They weren't talking at you. They were making a general comment. Is it possible that you think they were directing that at you and really it was just a general comment? I mean, seriously, somebody could say, I don't like Ford vehicles. And they don't know you're thinking about buying a Ford. They think I'm stupid. They're dissing me because I want to. That's a silly example, but not really, because that could happen. It's not really silly. So when you're reading books, when you're watching movies, what do you think about that comment? And talk about, was that directed at that person? How would you respond? What would you do differently? How would you feel? Help them start when they're not involved in a situation and can take a step back. You can speak to their logical brain and they can start learning the difference. Yeah. But teach them to pause before responding. Give them a phrase that buys them time. It takes at least 6 seconds for us to get out of our knee-jerk response. 95% of our thoughts are automatic. The emotion precedes behavior. So if we don't give ourselves that little bit of time, we react. You know what? That's a really good question. Let me think about that for a minute. Give them little filler things, but they really are going to think about it. And that took several seconds to say it, and they've already calmed down a little bit. And practice what are some calming techniques you can do, but also do the impulse games that I taught on the other show. Be prepared to handle angry outbursts. Predict. Parents, you know some of the things that are going to set your kids off. And I know sometimes it seems there is no pattern. There usually is. Sometimes it's harder to decipher. But remember, settling time, settling space. If you try to reason with kids when they are up to here, it is not going to penetrate. Literally, not because they're being stubborn, but because the fight or flight system has kicked in and the guard dog of the brain, it's called the amygdala, hijacks your very wise words, and it doesn't make it to your executive function where you can reason through it.
Can I give you a real life situation and you kind of talk me through it here? Okay. So, we have to drive my daughter to dance. And unfortunately, sometimes mom's working and we have to all get in the car together and drive her to dance. It is about a 30-minute trip one way. So the boys know they're going to be in for it. They need to bring a book or something like that. I will give Roger, because we're talking about Roger, I will give him a 20-minute. Prior to that, I will let him know, hey, we're leaving at 6:30. I'll give him a 20-minute. I'll give him a 10-minute. I'll give him a 2-minute. And I'll give him a, hey, it's time to go. No matter what, I feel like when I say it's time to go, he decides to go a little upset. I mean, really, really, like, I'm not leaving. I'm so sick of having to ride in this stupid car with my stupid sister, like, take this stupid trip. And at that point, all of the 10-minute, 20-minute, whatever, 5 minute, they've all been accepted. They've all been, yes, dad. And I mean, yes, I totally understand. I totally know. And at that point, the time and the pressure is there. Now, I do the best I can to stay calm, but I have to get in the car. Like, if we don't get in the car, she's going to be late and it costs us a lot of money and I can't leave him here. Right. And so if the kid is starting to freak out and starting to get really upset and mad, and I'm trying to stay composed, but at the same time, there's not enough time to sit there and slowly wait. What do you do in this situation, Heather?
I I want to back up and say a couple of things because what you just described is I hear a lot. One thing is back to that sense of time thing that I was talking about, time blindness. And I did a time management show, and there are three major components of time management. But the one that I'm going to talk about right now is time blindness.
Mm.
When I hear the words 20 minutes and I say yes, Dad, because I'm acknowledging I heard the words.
Yep.
I don't know what 20 minutes feels like.
Yeah.
20 minutes could be 2 minutes or 2 hours. I'm acknowledging you. I thought that was a social nicety I'm supposed to do, Dad. What do you want from me? Come on now. 10 minutes. Yes, I hear you. Okay. It is still a shock because of time blindness. I don't have that internal clock that tells me what 20 minutes feels like. So 20, 10, 2, they all feel the same to me. It is still a shock. And now when kids lack that internal clock, they seek control of time in inappropriate ways. I know what I want, when I want, how I want it. I don't want to do that right now.
Yep.
So big picture, this doesn't help in the moment, but big picture, it's very important to grow a sense of time. And I gave lots of options on how to do that. It's also very important to come up with some strategies for the settling time in the car.
Yeah.
Like, it's good to, and I've done shows about creating house rules before, and there needs to be there, because if this is a real ongoing issue, sit down, have a family meeting. It is the beauty of house rules is that it gives parents a degree of separation between what the requirement is and the parent. You're not being bad cop. The house rule says, and we all follow that rule. So if you have kids who have trouble, brushing their teeth, doing their nighttime routine, the house rule says at 9 o'clock we brush our teeth, and parents do it too. And things about kindness or whatever your rules are. And even if mom, dad, oops, we're human. Acknowledge that I broke the rule and the house rule says, and then show repair.
Yeah.
Relationship repair. So I think it's very important for you to create a house rule around that specific routine. And then come up with what is the settling time strategy for the car. One of the nice things about car rides, by the way, is that this, again, another counterintuitive thing is sometimes you can have really, and of course it depends, other kids are present, but just as another tip, car rides can be some of the best times to have the most engaging conversations with kids because they feel less threatened because you are looking at the road. Yes, eye contact is beautiful and it's important. Sometimes it's overwhelming for kids. And sometimes it's one other layer of sensory processing too. And if we're both looking this way, I have the guts to be more honest and say things to you that I'm having trouble when we're face to face facing each other.
Right. I love that. Thank you for that. We've also given him a watch, like a little Fitbit style watch. And he really likes it. He likes to know exactly what time it is. So I might think, and I have to go back and watch the time episode, but I think saying something like at 6:31, we have to get out the door, right? And then he's watching the watch. And so he has a sense of, okay, it says 6:31. I told Dad 6:31, we're leaving. And there he goes,
And one thing that I've recommended that has worked for a lot of kids is do something goofy, fun, silly, like favorite song, something that is like when this song kicks on and everybody dances to the car, or like you do something where if you're laughing, you can't really be. It's
Ooh,
very.
I don't know what that is. Hang on. So, Heather, did you hear that sound on your side? I just muted you. There was a weird sound coming from your microphone. So I'm going to bring you back and see what happened. Hang on. All right, it's still there. It's still there. Do you have something? I'll tell you what, take your headphones out. Let's try to get you back and then pull them out of your computer completely. Okay, I'm going to bring you back in. Let's see.
I can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah, but it's still weird. The sound is gone. Hmm. Okay, there's a weird, it's like a weird feedback thing. I'm trying to figure it out. Let's see, let's see. I'm gonna try to bring you back again. Let's see. No, it's like in and out. You can't hear that right now?
Mm-mm. I don't hear anything.
Definitely happening. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, everybody, if you're hearing that. Heather, I just have to keep muting you because it's like this weird feedback sound. Um, let's see. We've still got a slide to get through here, and I know we got to get you back. Let's see. Heather, talk to me. What are you saying?
Well, just let's just see what the next one is real quick. I think we can just kind of wrap up.
Yeah, go for it.
I did an entire show on unintended shaming, and I highly recommend people watch that entire show. But it's just very easy for us to unintentionally say things that make our kids feel shame. When we might compare them to a sibling. Why can't you apply yourself like your brother? If you and we might even think we're encouraging them. You're just as smart as your brother. If you'd apply yourself like he does, you'd get the same grade. We've got to that creates rivalry, competition, and shaming. Should statements. You're so smart. You should be making better grades. Should and shouldn't. Um, Invalidating emotions. It's no big deal. Why are you so upset? It sounds like we're trying to make them feel better, but we're saying your emotions are not valid. Generalizing. You always procrastinate. You never get to school on time. Always, never any overarching comments. They are going to take those literally, very likely. Questioning innocuous preferences. I can't believe you like the color orange. Why do you want a gerbil? What's wrong with me? Why do I like that? There must be something wrong with me. It's a lot in how you say it. Oh, you want a gerbil? Tell me about that. That's totally different from why would you want that? And age or gender based comments. And boys are tough. We don't cry. Or you're a big girl now. You got to, put on your big girl britches and get in the classroom. Um, all of those are shaming comments. For more information on that, check out the entire unintended shaming show. I wanted to just give a little, just touch on that a little bit, but there's way more to say on that topic. And how do we not mention that when we're talking about rejection sensitivity? These are things that could understandably be perceived as rejection that we are not intending in the way they might come across.
All right. Well, I'm going to mute you real quick as I bring us out. So, hey, everybody, if that feedback sound was happening for you, I apologize. It's coming through on my end like super hot. So, really sorry about that. I did want to make sure that we gave you the contact information for all of the centers that Heather and her team run. You can find them right here. Of course, you can see more from Heather Wells over at the Hidden Churn Facebook page. You can also email Katie Mansfield or the Woodlands Brain Balance Centers if you are local to any of those areas. We will take good care of you. You can call them at that phone number. Take a screenshot right now because you definitely want to reach out to Heather and her amazing team, and they will get you the answers you need. They are there for a phone call, so feel free to call. Okay, we are not going to say, hey, listen, you can't talk to us unless you pay us, $5. We just won't even answer the phone. It doesn't work like that. Okay, we want to help you first. So please give the phone number a call, shoot an email if you don't want to talk about it, and the team will respond to you as soon as possible. Heather, okay. So Tony does say, I'm going to bring you back in, Heather. Tony does say the high pitched sound was definitely there, but he said it was worth it. He said it was an amazing show. So I know she's saying thank you. So Tony, thanks for watching. And of course, Katie, thank you for watching and recommending to Sherry and Elise. I'm going to bring Heather back in. Maybe her high pitched sound is gone. Maybe it's not. If it's not, I'll just let her say bye real quick. Nope, it's still there. I'm not letting you back in. It's still there. I would restart your computer, Heather. But listen, everybody, cannot thank you enough for watching. And of course, go back and check out the show on unintended shaming. Wherever you're watching, we're broadcasting across multiple channels. Just type in unintended shaming, and you should be able to find that video in the video, history there. So thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to end now. Heather's just going to wave because we can't hear her, and we'll see you next time. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.